If you're either potentially going through a divorce or custody dispute, get off social media completely. I can't tell you how many times screenshots from TikTok or Instagram where people are reposting like memes or GIFs, but like nasty ones about like exes or baby daddies or crazy controlling moms are screenshotted, printed out, and used as exhibits. Because a lot of times in custody cases, the co-parenting and your how you interact with and get along with the other spouse is a huge factor. And so if you're just like and again that's one of the back to the TikTok, one of the hot legal takes was a question on how do you win a nasty custody case.
Hello, and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of legal fields and jurisdictions. Because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Ronald Petroff, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears his name, the Petroff Law Offices out of Columbus, Ohio, not Cleveland or Cincinnati or one of the other C-named Ohio states. Ronald, how are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Before we get started, I'm going to jump over and take a look at your site. This is Ronald's site, and it is McNairPetroff.com. That is the URL that everything forwards to. I don't know if there's a better URL you want us to use, or if that is the preferred URL.
So that's a great question, Justin. We actually have three URLs that all point to the same page, as you probably understand, and
Yep.
have had guests that have had firm name changes.
Yep.
The original name was McNair Petroff. Then it went to Petroff Smitherman and Associates, so psalaws.com, and then now petrofflawoffices.com. So all three URLs point to the same site.
All right. Well, I just pulled it up in my notes and I saw Petroff Law Offices. That seems to forward right now. Maybe that'll be the overarching one. Maybe we'll put all three down there. But if you guys want, you can use the links that we'll have down in the description box in order to get a hold of him and his firm. The Petroff Law Office is a boutique family law firm located again in Columbus, Ohio, but serving, I think, most of, if not all of, the Ohio area. They focus on all sorts of family law matters from divorce and custody and etc. And that's going to be what we're going to be talking about today as we kind of dive into this episode. Before we get started, as always, we are going to read from our sponsors. Our first sponsor today is going to be SearchSift. SearchSift, SYFT.com. Do you know why some clicks in Google for law, as well as roofing, plumbing, etc., can be $50, $100, $200, $300, even $500 or more? In fact, I've personally seen in certain niches like personal injury law over $1,000 per click. It's not because Google has a magical make things more expensive for these niches buttons, is because Google Ads is an auction. And whenever there's 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 firms or businesses bidding on the same high intent search phrase, a phrase like car accident lawyer, divorce attorney near me, criminal defense lawyer, roofing, plumbing, etc., the price goes up and up and up because it's a free market. But here's what most firms and other businesses miss. Before somebody ever clicks on an ad, before they ever see the map pack, before they ever choose a law firm on page 1, Google's already shaping the search with auto-suggest suggestions. And that's where SearchSift comes in. SearchSift helps position you and your firm or your business earlier in the search journey, inside of the predictive searches that people see before they make their decision. So instead of only fighting after the search happens, you start influencing intent before the click happens. And what's really neat is with SearchSift, you don't pay. They do that for free. You only pay for actual genuine traffic coming from Google from the search phrases that you actually want to show up for. You only pay when somebody actually clicks and visits your website. So if you're tired of paying for auction prices for every single lead, you're tired of paying for expensive SEO, maybe it's time to stop fighting where everyone else is and move to the blue ocean. Visit SearchSift, SYFT, SearchSift, SEARCHSYFT.com and see what your market looks like. You can book a time with a specialist. Our second sponsor is Groove Funnels. If you run an online business, that doesn't mean you should be paying for 12 different tools before you've even made a sale. That's where Groove comes in. Groove gives entrepreneurs, creators, marketers one single platform for funnels, checkouts, emails, memberships, e-commerce, blogs, webinars, affiliates, automations, and more. There's no credit card needed. There's no trial that flips. There's no monthly software bill to get started. Groove is simply free to use, and they only earn a small platform fee whenever you actually sell something. So stop duct taping your business together with expensive subscriptions. Visit theattorneypost.com/groove today to start for free. Again, literally for free. You don't need anything. You don't need a credit card. That's theattorneypost.com/groove. And as always, we will have links to our sponsors down below. All righty. Let me move that out of the way and jump back over here. Come on, Zoom. And there we go. Zoom has been a little slow this morning. Alrighty, so again, I am meeting with Ronald Petroff, who runs the eponymous law firm that we just talked about that bears his name. It's a Columbus-based, statewide Ohio domestic relations and family law firm. Today's guest is Ronald R. Petroff. He's the founder and managing partner of the Petroff Law Offices, one of Ohio's leading state and family law domestic relationship firms, located again right down in downtown Columbus. Sorry, my brain and my mouth have not caught up yet this morning, but you guys are used to that sometimes. Ron focuses his practice on complex divorce and dissolution matters, high conflict custody litigation, post-decree disputes, high asset property division, and appellate advocacy. He's built a reputation for strategic thinking, courtroom presence, and practical problem solving, helping clients navigate some of the most emotionally and financially difficult moments of their lives. He earned his undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University, graduating cum laude with dual degrees in political science and American history, and then attended Ohio State University Moritz College of Law, where he achieved a certificate in alternative dispute resolution and competed. Man, I cannot talk this morning. I apologize. On moot court and trial teams. Before founding the Petroff Law Offices in 2007, he gained experience with respected institutions, including Thompson Hine, Judge Kathleen M. O'Malley of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Ohio, and Buckley King. His career has included recognitions from Columbus Business First 40 Under 40 and the National Association of Distinguished Counsel, American Institute of Family Law Attorneys, AVO, Martindale-Hubbell, and Columbus CEO. He's also an active speaker, educator, presenting on divorce, negotiations, ADR, collaborative law, ethics, complex financial divorce issues, and everything else. He also enjoys luxury travel, scuba diving, racket sports, movies, time with family, and cheering on both Ohio State and Vanderbilt athletics. Having said all of that, and that was, my goodness, a mouthful, I'm sure I missed some of the most important things about you. So my first question to you, Ronald, is always just, what did I miss in that introduction? What should people know about you that wasn't mentioned?
Well, I have three daughters, all 2 years apart. I've been married for almost 20 years. And over the last, 5 to 10 years, I have taken sort of a primary caregiver role as my wife was the primary caregiver from when they were born till about school age. And then now that they're in travel sports and very social and I'm almost like a sports agent and a travel agent, all wrapped into one, and it keeps me very busy. When I'm not doing that, as you briefly mentioned, I do play a lot of racket sports. I try to play tennis or pickleball every day in the summer, and multiple times a week in the winter.
Awesome. I have never actually played pickleball, but I do enjoy racquetball. I haven't played it in a long time, and I'm sure I'd probably throw something out if I tried to just jump right back into the sport. But I miss it. It was a lot of fun. It's a fun little tiny court, and I don't think about it very often, but that's a good one. I like it.
It's a
So
good sweat.
it is a good sweat. So my first question to you, my first real question is this. Give me a pitch for your firm. If I didn't know who you were, and I just read a whole lot, obviously, but there's a lot that there's to unpack there. So tell me about your firm. What separates you guys? What do you do? Who do you focus on? Where are they? Who do you help? Why do they come to you? And why do they choose you over your competitors?
Wow, that was a compound question, Justin.
What I
I
do.
will try to unpack that. So, when I started this company about 20 years ago, I had two real business mottos in mind. Number one is I saw that in the marketplace, that there wasn't really a niche, or there wasn't high-end family law firms didn't really market themselves. High-end luxury, boutique. Their family lawyers back in the early 2000s, I felt like were just, general practitioners. They did a little bit of divorce, they did a little bit of criminal law, they did a little bit of personal injury, and I wanted to be sort of the Jones Day or the, Squire Patton Boggs of family law. What I realized, in the Columbus market, as opposed to some of the other markets, the big firms, the big law firms, they didn't have a family law practice group. I think as we sit here today, I think there's only two in Central Ohio that actually have family law practice groups. So that left a large opening in the market for sort of higher end family law. And so when I started my firm, a lot of my competitors, some of my top competitors, and some of the firms I respect the most, their fathers started their firms and kind of, and then retired and then handed over the keys to the sons. And so those I did not have that luxury. I started this on my own in 2007 after sort of taking a residency year with another family law firm. And I saw two things. One, we needed a market to sort of high end boutique family law. Number two, we wanted to be, not a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. We wanted to focus on high asset divorce and high conflict custody, and we wanted to be the market leaders in both of those areas.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So let me ask you this: what got you into law? Were you one of those kids that just grew up knowing that you wanted to be an attorney? Did you grow up on, I don't know, Perry Mason reruns or something? Just like, man, that's my gig. Or did you kind of stumble into it and you're like, oh, this is my jam? And then what got you into family law in particular?
Yeah, so I can answer both pretty succinctly because I do get those questions quite a bit, as you can imagine. So what got me into law is simple. I come from a family of two physicians. Both of my parents were very well respected physicians in the Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, Cleveland area, and I realized I was not good at science or math, and nor did I have a passion for either. But I had the gift of gab, and I was a very good writer, and I enjoyed reading. And so, in our family, it was either doctor or lawyer, and so I chose the lawyer route. And then I was a poli sci and history major because again, I tried to take as few math and science classes as necessary to graduate from Vanderbilt, while loading up on history and poli sci. So in law school, I tried to do at Ohio State, one of the premier law schools in the region, in the state, and in the Midwest. A lot of my classmates and colleagues went to big law. I tried that. I dabbled with doing insurance defense work as a summer associate. It paid very well. I was attracted to the money, but unfortunately, it just wasn't that interesting to me. And so when we all kind of gathered first semester after our second year summer internships, everyone kind of had summer associate positions. This was the fall of 2005. We were sitting in the library, kind of summarizing and going over our experiences. And I shared mine with my colleagues and classmates, and they told me that they thought that my personality specifically would be a perfect fit for family law. When I first heard that, I didn't really understand it because in my mind, as a naive law student, I kind of grouped family law and criminal law and personal injury law as kind of the areas of law that you go into, by accident, or if you didn't get a big law firm job type of thing. I didn't think that
Sure.
anyone actually chose to go into those areas. So at first I was a little bit, confused as to why that was a suggestion. And then, as we talked a little further, three of my buddies told me that, anytime that they had, relationship questions, or anytime they wanted, advice on, what should you respond to that girl, when she writes you an email or a text, and what should I say? They would always come to me and ask me what I thought. And so I was kind of the person, who was very social in law school and who people talked to a lot about the relationships and relationship problems and things like that. And they told me to be a natural fit. And so I kind of went with that for a little bit. I can certainly tell you this, 20 some years later, it has never been boring. Okay. The experience in family law is a lot of things, but boring or soporific is not one of them.
Fair enough. I can imagine. I imagine now I'm going to come back to this topic in a little bit. I'm sure you deal with a lot of difficult issues, a lot of emotionally draining things, as well as probably some level of absurdity. We'll jump into that here in a couple of minutes, but I want to ask you a question before we talk about anything else. And this is something I asked some of my guests, but not all of them. But I find in family law, I'm really intrigued to see what they have to say. So 6 years ago, give or take, the world paused for a little bit. We went through COVID. And at this point, we're far enough out that I think it just feels like a weird, distant memory for a lot of us. But everything changed during COVID. And I've heard competing and conflicting opinions about what COVID did to particularly family law and family life. I've heard some attorneys say that their cases dried up during that time. I've heard others say their cases exploded during that time. And I don't really know how to parse that data other than maybe they were positioned in a better way or worse way to find people, doing those searches or whatever it happens to be. But what was your experience of the shutdown, from whether you experience an influx in people, if you've noticed the way that it changed the way that people dealt with each other, and also how did it affect your firm on just a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So I can answer that from both perspectives, the business side and the legal side. So let me start with the legal side. I think the experience that in Franklin County and in most of the counties in Ohio um, provided after COVID was one that has resulted in a lot more efficiency in the courtroom, a lot more efficiency in the docketing system, and the advent of Zoom video conferencing. So before COVID, you would travel either to the local courthouse or, like I said, or as you said in the opening, there's 88 counties in Ohio, and we practice in about 65 of them, and some of them are 3 hours away. So I would have clients pay me to drive 6 hours round trip for a 15-minute non-substantive scheduling conference where literally all we're doing is getting dates for case management order, pretrial, second pretrial, and trial dates. That could be done via telephone or Zoom, and they just never were for whatever reason. Now, almost every court in the state will allow non-substantive hearings to go forward via Zoom.
Virtually.
So from a client-centric perspective, that's great because it is so much more economically feasible. Luckily, from our firm, we're not losing business or losing billable hours because we're just replacing that with other client. The 6 hour drive now is replaced with a deposition and for another, or multiple hearings with other clients. So it's not like we're losing revenue. And to that point, from a business standpoint, our revenue, our bottom line increased by 20% during COVID. I don't know if that's because we were 15, 16 years out as a law firm, or if it was COVID or a combination of the two. But it has been a very, very that was kind of the next level up. We entered over the 2 million revenue threshold as a result of the COVID, and I'm sure anyone who remembers that time remembers that meme of the gentleman hiding behind a tree going like this with his, and it said divorce attorneys be like,
Yeah.
it was a larger African American gentleman. That meme or that GIF traveled, exponentially throughout the legal community, and referring to divorce attorneys, licking their lips during COVID.
No, I'm very familiar with that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to pull it up really quickly.
I was actually trying to pull it up before I answered, but I didn't want to have any technical issues or anything. But if you
No,
could
that's
share that
fine.
with the audience, that's exactly the one I'm talking about. And it was true. It rang true. Yep.
I don't know if I
Yep.
can make it, how much bigger I can make it. There we go. Divorce
So
lawyers when couples get in quarantine.
that is so true. And that's the best. They say pictures are worth 1,000 words. That answers your question right there, Justin.
Memes are my love language, so I very, very much speak in meme a lot. So okay, so you've been practicing law for 20 years,
Yeah.
and I'm a firm believer that you step up to bat enough times, nobody bats 1,000. I'm sure that you've had some failures in your law practice. Maybe it was a case that went the wrong way, a client that said the wrong thing, you forgot to fill out a form the right way, whatever it happens to be. But can you let my listeners know about a time in your practice where you had a failure of some kind? But what did you learn from that, and how do you always carry that forward to make sure you're giving the best care to your clients?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that a little bit differently, Justin. So from a legal standpoint, we've been pretty fortunate. We've been pretty fortunate not to have any, missteps from the legal standpoint, and that's kind of why we have 135 5-star reviews. We've never been sued for malpractice. We've never had anyone here at the firm been, found to be unprofessional or unethical or a violation of any kind of professional responsibility. But of course, people get accused all the time of malfeasance, but the problem with the accusations is it comes from people who are unhappy or who are uninformed about their case, their legal rights, et cetera. And what I learned in 20 years is that people are always unhappy during this process, no matter how well you do for them and no matter how hard you fight for them. They're either unhappy with the fact that they're going through a divorce or a custody dispute, that their family is being broken up one way or another, or how expensive it was, or how inefficient the process was. And so guess who gets blamed for that? Me, 99% of the time.
You're the whipping
So
boy.
what I would say the hardest transition, or not transition, the hardest thing for me to learn is from the business side. From the legal side, I think I've done pretty well, but from the business side, I would think that what I was not trained in and what I probably need some coaching in is HR, and how to get this Generation Z, to stay with the same company for 5, 10, 15 years.
Mm.
We have not been able to retain the highest talent for the longest period of time. And when I've talked to my colleagues about it, some of them say it's just, endemic into the field. Associate attorneys want to leave and start their own thing, or they want to, pursue other options. Young paralegals don't want to be paralegals for their whole career anymore, or legal assistants. It's not they're just doing that for a few years before they go to law school or before they do something else. And so, you know, fortunately, right now we have a very good group, and you're catching me at a good time. I feel very confident about my group that I have. But like, let me give you an example. Through no fault of my own, I hired a very talented, highly regarded associate attorney who clerked for me while in law school, and then started with me, but only stayed 8 months and said to me, family law is just not for him. It's too emotional. It's too stressful. And, after me investing a year and a half of training him and providing him with lots of information and cases and training, he decided to go to a non-family law firm and do, business litigation. So like that's a business. I mean, that's a firm killer if that happens all the time. And so over
Yeah.
the years, I've had associates leave and start their own firm. I've had associates leave and start their own non-family law type firms. And so that's been something that, I need to work on. I need to figure out the best way to retain talent. Everyone has opinions on that. Not everyone, and I think not everyone is money motivated. Old school people in Generation X and Boomers think that, oh, just pay them more. Well, we have very, very competitive salaries, and we treat people very well financially and benefit packages and things like that. But sometimes, the work-life balance for this young generation is more important than work. And that's just foreign to me and to my family and how I was raised, but something that I'm constantly learning.
Gotcha. That's an interesting struggle, but you're not the first person I've heard that has said that that's been an issue that they've had. And it kind of comports with, I mean, my experience of reality as well. Like this new generation is a very different generation, from always on social media to, they grew up in a very different world. There's a word for, I think you're about my age, give or take. There's a specific word for us called the Zennials or Zillennials. I actually really I don't like most generational terms, but I
Right,
find it is really unique because we grew up, in the late 70s, early 80s, where
right,
you had an analog childhood and a digital adolescence. So we adapted quickly to technology. It doesn't baffle us. We understand social media and websites and computers, but we also remember playing outside until the streetlights came on,
right.
and you had to be home by dinner, but your mom didn't know where you were. You had a quarter in your pocket, or maybe 35 cents or 50 cents or whatever it was back in the day. But if you had an emergency, you could call, or you knew the trick where you made it a collect call to your mom and you just spoke
Yeah.
really, really quickly. But this modern generation doesn't have that. It's just a very different grown up experience of them.
Growing up in the mid to late 90s was the best. I wouldn't change that for anything. And so yeah, I really enjoy, people who were born in between 78 and 82. Like those are the people I have. I mean, I'm sure that's not revolutionary, but that's who I have the most in common with, of course.
They're the reason why in the Matrix the machines had to make the world the late 90s. It was the peak of human
I
civilization.
100% agree. I graduated high school in 99 and I wouldn't change that for
I think you and I are exactly the same age, give or take, 'cause I was also 99. So there you go. Very cool. Well, so the flip side of the struggle is success. And I'm sure in 20 years you've had some big wins as well. And they don't have to be legal wins necessarily, but I'm sure you've helped clients turn their lives around, in a negative situation. I'm sure there's multiple things that you're probably very proud of. The proverbial feathers in your cap. What's one or two of those in your legal career, your legal profession that you're particularly proud of, Ronald?
So I find that we are consulted. We're very frequently the second or third attorney that folks come in to meet with and potentially discuss their case, either on an interviewing for original initial hiring, or potentially taking over their case because they're unhappy or unsatisfied with their current representation. And I can't tell. This is not hyperbole. I would say, between 5 and 10 times a month, someone says to me, God, if I would have known you, or if I would have hired you, uh, you know, back then, or so and so, or, this would have been a totally different kicking themselves and that kind, and that provides me a lot of comfort and enjoyment because it shows that it's not just any lawyer, right? They're seeing the difference between how we provide white glove customer service. In 2005 and 6, the biggest complaint I heard about lawyers in general, on the whole, was lack of responsiveness, whether it be return emails, return phone calls, lack of responsiveness. And that's something that we don't do. We provide responses, daily, if not multiple times a day. Now that leads to customers thinking that they have on demand, clients have on demand access, but we are very, very quick with our response times. And that's one of the tenets of our firm. And then also kind of like, perception is reality. We have a very nice office. We have, very nice, the way that aesthetically, it's very important for us to, look the part and when you're coming to a lawyer's office, you should feel a certain way. And so that's how, I built this firm. And that's how, when people come here, and they share their experiences and they say how different we are, both from, the intake department to, how we think outside the box. And honestly, to be a really good and a successful family law lawyer, like you have to not worry and care about what people think about you. Sometimes you just have to do what's best for your client, even if another lawyer thinks you're difficult, or if a judge rolls his or her eyes at you. But at the end of the day, this is a results-driven business. And so that's something that I find the older I get, the less I care what people think about me, or how I go about achieving these results. But the customers are very happy. They're very happy and they keep coming back, and we have a huge referral system. And so we're good at what we do. And so I guess the answer to your question is, I just think that we are different from most, if not all, of our competitors, and achieving those results. How we go about it, our secret sauce, is what I'm most proud of.
I'm going to push back on one thing that you said, only because it feels almost silly. Okay, so you said they keep coming back. Like, are these people that just keep getting into like very poor marriages, or is it you help my marriage, now help me with my custody
I'm
issue?
so glad you asked me that, Justin, because sometimes in like networking groups and meetings, people say, "What's your perfect client?"
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you what my perfect client is. You're going to laugh and think I'm being sarcastic. I'm a little bit tongue in cheek, but literally my perfect client is, he or she is going through a divorce, potentially having an affair. He or she is sending me their paramour, okay, or mistress. They're going through a divorce, okay. I'm representing both of them, okay. They both have children. Their custody, I get them divorced. Then I have two clients now, and then they have multiple children because, and then those children, those custody agreements need to be modified, okay. So then those are post-decree clients,
Yeah.
and then it just like it keeps going. And then sometimes when I'm not representing the other spouse, the person will get divorced and then they'll need a prenup. So there's all kinds of, ancillary or, second or third generational work that needs to be done.
That's fair. I was curious, what you'd say about that. So there we go. So one of my favorite questions to ask, and I do find in family law, sometimes you guys have some of the best stories. Absurdity. Like, lawyers in general encounter a lot of absurdity because the law itself as law can be absurd. It can be impartial in a good way, but also impartial in a silly way. And then you put in human emotions and everything else. I'm sure that you've encountered some of the weirdest absurdities. And those tend to make really good podcast fodder. So can you let my listeners know, Ronald, about maybe one or two of the most absurd things you've encountered in your practice of law?
So I would say there are daily absurdities. A lot of those are not appropriate for a family friendly podcast, and have to deal with some sexual deviancy and things like that. But I can share with you a sad absurd story that has to do with a couple the wife of a couple came in to see me about 7 years ago. Both spouses were morbidly obese, and both were approved for bariatric surgery, like lap band, and they were both had surgeries planned for scheduled for fall and then the following winter. Husband was going to go first. Wife was going to nurse him back to health, and then wife was going to go in the winter. and then the two of them would be, their weight would be in check and they'd be healthy and they could, go on with their lives. Well, wife comes in, she's extremely overweight. And she tells me this story and I ask her, what's going on and why is she here? And she's extremely sad. And she tells me that, well, husband got the surgery and, what during his rehab and during his nursing back to health, he ends up having an affair with his bariatric nurse in the hospital and decides to leave wife. So husband is now, not overweight and has left with his nurse. And wife is now using the money that she had pre-set aside for her surgery on legal fees and is still morbidly obese.
Mm.
So that was an absurd, sad story, and one that people like to ask me about a lot.
Well, I don't want to laugh. I mean, it's a weird situation to be in, but it is very unfortunate. As soon as you mentioned, I almost sensed where this was going too, and that's the really sad part. I guess it's something about human nature. You can just kind of you can see the thread, and when you start to pull on it, you know where it's
You
going.
you saw that, you knew the punchline as soon as I said bariatric surgery. You knew what was going on.
Said it, which is sad. My mother and my stepfather both had that years ago. They both have passed away ever since. But I will say it seems to work for people. I don't know about all the long-term health issues. And I'm not this show is not here to give medical advice or legal advice. So please consult a doctor or a lawyer if you see fit. But I have questions about the actual long-term safetiness of that sort of a procedure. But anyway, or there. Okay, so this is a very important question, and I need you to take this as seriously as you can. You grew up in the 90s, like I did. You grew up watching various TV shows, etc. Maybe My Cousin Vinny or whatnot. Who's your favorite fictional attorney?
Oh, Harvey Specter from The
Okay.
Suits. Easy, easy.
Very important question, but you can tell a
Yeah.
lot based on who their favorite attorney is. So it's not
Yeah.
not Saul Goodman.
No, 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 not Saul Goodman, and not Louis Litt either.
Okay.
People, Harvey
Well,
Specter.
you grew up on Atticus Finch, right? I mean, there's
Yeah,
there's thought for Perry Mason or whoever it happens to be. So, fair enough. So, okay,
or
let's
Jack McCoy from Law and Order, the prosecutor.
there you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Some people are established connoisseurs, if you will, of legal fiction. But do you read a lot of John Grisham? Do you like legal fiction, or is that
I've read a couple. I've read King of Torts. I don't think Lincoln Lawyer is John Grisham, but those are two of my favorite legal books.
gotcha? Um,
The Firm.
it's for the firm. That's an obvious one. Um, Who's your favorite? So you studied American history. I want to talk about that for just a minute. So I have a degree in philosophy and a degree in history, which is, why I got into marketing because I can
Right.
ask deep questions in life like paper or plastic, or you want fries with that. And so it's either start a law firm. I actually I used to take the LSAT for fun. I thought it was a good time. It was either start a law firm, go to law school, or get into marketing, and got into marketing because, got a voice and a face for radio, as they say. Uh, um, anyway, so I guess sorry, my brain is derailing because the second cup of coffee hasn't hit yet. What would you say? Shoot, where's it going with that? Oh my goodness. I literally actually just derailed. What was my lead into that?
You were
American
asking me
history. I want
about,
to ask you about American history. Um,
yes,
so you studied history in general, but American history was your main focus. Why
yes.
American history, and what is your favorite aspect of American history?
So I did my thesis and we had to do like a capstone project. I did it on the 1960s. I've been fascinated by America. 1963, was a crazy year in American history, one that was, revolutionary with assassinations and, conventions and just crazy things going on. So I've always been fascinated by the, 60s and then early 70s, and what it would have been like to living here during that time. And so that's kind of my favorite period of American history. Yeah.
You want to feel really old. The kids today that are growing up feel the same way about the 90s because that's how far it was from when we were kids versus when they were kids. So now
Well, I guess they both had Woodstocks, right?
they did both have Woodstocks. I don't know. I don't know if Woodstock 99 was quite as big of a
No,
deal
it
as
was like it was like a nasty, muddy mess.
yeah, it was
It
a big
wasn't
mud.
the, it wasn't the cultural revolution that 1969 was.
No, you can't fake that, right? Like 69 was an organic thing.
Right.
And I felt like the 99 version was more of a consumer thing,
Yeah.
which it is
I-
what it is MTV culture at its peak, right? Right as they were starting to learn that you made more money not showing M on MTV, they switched over to reality TV, right?
right.
You were there for that switch. You're
Yeah.
familiar
Oh
with that.
yeah. Well, I blame MTV. I love, the Real World. I was hooked on those Real World shows, and now, every single show is like a copy off the Real World.
True stories of seven strangers picked to
Yeah.
live in. Yeah, no, I
Which was your
distinct.
favorite cast?
I only ever watched the first three seasons, and I'm trying to remember which ones which. I like the one that had Puck and Pedro. Like
Yeah,
Puck
that's
was
San
just
Francisco. Yeah,
he
Puck would
he
stick
was
his fingers in the
peanut butter. Everyone remembers that. He was just and and
his
then I liked
nasty,
the
dirty
concept of
fingernails.
road rules as well. So it's like,
Yeah,
hey, let's do the real world, but on the road. That's a clever concept. But that was when MTV was like, whoa, we make way more money doing this than we do paying
right.
licenses and showing music on music television. And then it just became TV. They dropped the M and just
We
became
dropped the
TV.
M.
But that's that. All right. So now I want to jump over and talk a little bit. I'm gonna be respectful of your time because we're actually getting close to the end of the hour here.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? I could talk with you for a good long while. I think we have a lot. We're on the same wavelength about a lot of things. But let's talk about divorce in general. When a
Okay.
divorce involves a business,
Yeah.
um, there's some huge landmines that people need to be looking out for: valuations, cash flow, control, hidden income, etc. Whether the business started before the marriage, during the marriage, etc. What are those landmines, and what should people be looking out for?
That's a great question. So those are the most interesting and challenging cases, or self-employment cases, for my firm. And so we have 5 lawyers here, 4 support staff. I do all the intake, and I delegate all of the clients based on who, what county, what judge, who the opposing counsel is, what the issues are. But I typically take the self-employment cases if they're, business cases. And so there are 3 concepts that even business owners don't realize that are important. But and general ledger reports, profit loss statements, and balance sheets. Okay, we need to look at those, and we need to analyze those, and we either need to do it ourselves, hire an expert, or what have you. But we can't just rely on disclosures that the business owner makes. If it's usually, if I'm representing the spouse of the business owner, and the business owner, the business owner's attorney is always like, well, this is what it said on his tax returns, right? Like, if that's how it starts with your premise, like, we're not going to have a good we're not going to have a good conversation, because the tax returns and what you put on your Rule 17 financial disclosure that's required at the beginning of the filing doesn't mean anything to me. We need to dig deeper, and we need to look at those documents. And so, depending on the size of the business, the sophistication of the business, I'm doing a case right now, in a rural county where literally there is, the guy makes millions of dollars, but doesn't have any business infrastructure, financial infrastructure, or sophistication at all. Like, everything's in his personal account. There's no accounting software. Like, you can't. It's just money in, money out, and it's not categorized, it's not tagged or anything. And that's been very difficult and challenging to figure out what's what. But the key to these business cases is having good records, and then not being afraid to use experts. We use experts all the time, to assist us: forensic experts, business evaluators, etc. A lot of times spouses don't want to deal with the cost of dealing with an attorney or a business expert or an evaluator. But, like, this is when you're getting divorced, this is like a business investment. Like, you need to think about this financially for the rest of your life. And a lot of spouses don't even want to, pursue the business, even if it started before the marriage. But, there's marital equity in it if it grew, depending on certain factors. And so I always am surprised when my clients are like, let him keep it or let her keep it. I'm not interested. Okay.
Gotcha. You've presented CLE's continuing legal education on things like negotiation strategy. What's one of the big negotiation mistakes you see a lot of attorneys make in a divorce case?
It's funny you asked that, because at 12 o'clock, I'm supposed to do a test run with NBI, which is like a national CLE provider, to make sure, to do like a studio check type of thing. So you're gonna like this, because it's gonna resonate with our kind of age and our mentality. It is so important to get in a room with other people physically, in a conference room or in someone's office, and stop emailing each back and forth. Like nothing's going to get done via email. No one calls anyone anymore. Okay. So like because of that, at least have a Zoom video conference with someone, but like you need to have face-to-face interaction. So the biggest mistake people make in negotiation is doing it via email.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, that's this new generation, right? A lot of them really don't want to be face to face. We're in a generation where being in person really does make a difference. And I think that's 100%. So you just answered a question I was going to actually ask you is, do you have a hard out? So you have a hard out probably in like 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Well, I can be a little late to them. This is more important.
Hey, I want to be as respectful of your time as possible. And I usually ask that in the pre-roll. And that's the one question I forgot to ask you is
That's
what's your hard
okay.
out? Well, I'll ask a couple more questions here, and then we'll wrap things up because I do want to be as respectful of your time as possible. Now, you have appeared on a number of other podcasts. A lot of those are actually featured on your website. Ideally, you'll be linking to us at some point as well. Have you found that public education and public relations or PR has been a big part of your business development strategy for your firm?
That's a great question. So that just started. So we hired an intern who was like the social media coordinator for her sorority and one of the colleges here in town. And I just literally 2 weeks ago downloaded TikTok and started a TikTok page for the firm of business TikTok. And we're doing both like kind of the trendy meme funny ones, but we're also doing public information where I'm talking about like hot legal takes and things that are interested, things that might be interesting in Ohio. And I wanted to, tell everyone or if you could pull up the TikTok page for any of the listeners or watchers of the program here. I was going to tell you that the name, the username, and everything like that is
See, I see it on.
CBUS Divorce. Yep. Uh, that's it.
Okay.
CBUS Divorce Attorney. And so,
See,
like, let me give you an example. You asked about public interest. If you scroll
yeah.
down a little bit, um, oh, that's so. Hold on a
This is
minute.
Instagram, not TikTok. Um,
Is that? Oh, that's Instagram.
yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, as a caveat on your website, you don't have TikTok down here, so you might want
Oh,
to have
okay,
your
we'll
web.
need to add that. Did anyone actually click on those little icons?
Some people do. I do when I'm doing research for a
Oh,
client, et
okay.
cetera. I'm like, who
Like,
are you?
I
What do
wonder
you
if
do?
customers ever do that though.
But I mean that it's not the number one way. If people are going to find you on social, they're going to find you organically most of the time. They're not going
Right.
to find you on your website and going here. But I would still have it on there, especially if it's a channel you're proud of. You want to highlight, what you guys are doing and everything else. So give me that spelling. C bust,
C-bus,
like
divorce, ATTY.
SEA.
CBUS, C-bus, like Columbus.
Oh, C bus, C
Yeah,
bus.
that's the moniker for Columbus. C-bus, divorce, ATTY. Yeah, TikTok. There you go.
Let's see, Ohio Family Law Firm. There we go. Ronald Petroff. There we go.
And
Uh,
then if you go to I just want to give kind of to answer your question, the best is just to show you the video. If you
yeah.
go back one or go to the
Boom. There we go. Oh, come on, TikTok. I don't know. TikTok's being very
all
disagreeable
right.
today.
Well,
Whatever.
anyway, go to the page. CBUS. That's funny that you wrote SEA or SEE. CBUS, like Columbus Divorce Attorney on TikTok, and there's some free legal information there about the state of custody laws, for example, if you're never married in Ohio.
Gotcha.
So we put that on there.
Very
But some
cool.
of these are memes like click on the one next to the right of the flags. You'll like that one. The one right there. Yeah, click on that one. That's a funny one.
Three personalities in every law firm. We'll see you in court. It's okay. We can still negotiate. Nah, we'll see you in court. I like it. That's good. So this is a lead into another thing I want to actually ask you about. You've been practicing for 20 years. That really the iPhone was a thing in 2007, '08, as like when the first real smartphones became a thing. And that was really, I mean, Facebook was already around, but that's really when everything shifted and people started carrying black rectangles in their pocket that were magical and let you talk to people all around the world. What have you noticed in family law when it comes to things like social media? What are the big landmines that social media are? Have you had clients have issues with social media? Has it been the thing that's led
Yeah.
to issues escalating or tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a so that's a great question. If you're going through a custody dispute or if you're either potentially going through a divorce or custody dispute, get off social media completely. I can't tell you how many times screenshots from TikTok or Instagram where people are reposting like memes or gifs, but like nasty ones about like exes or baby daddies or crazy controlling moms are screenshotted, printed out, and used as exhibits. Because a lot of times in custody cases, the co-parenting and your how you interact with and get along with the other spouse is a huge factor. And so if you're just like and again that's one of the back to the TikTok, one of the hot legal takes was a question on how do you win a nasty custody case. Mudslinging and demeaning and degrading the other spouse or the other parent is not the way to go. Absolutely not. It's actually a turnoff for the court, for a guardian ad litem, etc. The way to win these cases is focusing on the distance you live from the other parent, your work schedule, her work schedule, the age of the child, where the child's school is, logistics, like pragmatics. Is there special needs? Is there this? Is there that? That's how you win. You don't win by saying, he's a jerk, she's controlling, he's marrying an awful person. Like that's not how you win these cases. And people put that stuff on social media all the time, and they need to not.
Yeah, that's just good advice in general. Be a good human being.
Well, if you were a good human being, maybe you wouldn't be in my office. I don't know.
Well, hopefully they're in your office because it's the other person's not a good human
Right.
being. But
That's the way I like to look at it.
it's fair. Well, again, I want to be respectful of your time. So here in a minute, what I'm going to do, Ronald, I'm going to ask you my three closing questions so
Let's
I can
do
get
it.
out of here. Before I do that, I'm going to jump over one more time. I've been sharing my screen a lot on this episode, but I'm going to share your law firm again. Petroff Law Offices. I've been talking with Ronald Petroff, who is the eponymous law firm. His name is on the masthead right there. If you are anywhere in Ohio, for the most part, 65 of the 88 counties in Ohio, he can help you out in his law firm. If you are in a family dispute issue, divorce, high asset divorce, dissolution, custody, all the things across the board here, his law firm definitely helps out with. So if you need help in that area, please visit the link down below or give him a call. The phone number on the website, at least, is 614-222-4288. That's 614-222-4288. And if somebody has a question, do you guys do like an initial consultation for free? Like, how does that work out?
Yes, we do not. We do not do we charge for our initial consultations. At the conclusion of the initial consultation, we will quote a retainer, and I will assign the attorney, whether it be me or one of the other four other attorneys at the firm, to your case. So the initial consultation is the most important part of the process. The other thing that people don't understand is we have a very involved intake. So like it's like going to a new doctor for the first time. We have forms you need to fill out that are required for our consultation so that we can do our job to better assist you. People like to groan and moan about that, but it's integral part of the process.
Gotcha. Well, very cool. So I'm going to jump over really quickly, read from our last sponsor. Our last sponsor today is Rank with News. I got to pull up the tab here. Come on. There we go. Is not being in the news regularly costing your business or your firm credibility and visibility? Do you feel like getting found in Google search is more about dumb luck than science, let alone AI search? What if there was a guaranteed way to get your law firm or your business featured in major national publications like Yahoo News, Bloomberg, Forbes, Reuters, AP News, etc., and seeing those articles ranking locally, even nationally sometimes, in under 8 hours for major competitive keywords that people are actually already searching for? What else would you need to know? Rank with News is simply the simple, most powerful way to hit page one in under 2 weeks safely, organically, and permanently. This is like guaranteed SEO or search engine optimization on steroids, ranking quickly and sticking long term. If you're tired of poor visibility for your business or firm, visit rankwith.news to learn more and book a time to speak with a specialist about featuring your business or firm in major national 8-figure traffic sites that can launch you to page one in a matter of hours and help you dominate your local marketplace. Get media exposure, rank higher in Google, build credibility, and win more customers and clients with Rank with News. Alrighty, so final three questions here, Ronald, before we head out here. So question number one, if I gave you a magic wand, and with that magic wand, I think I actually know where you're going to go with this, but I'm curious. We'll see. If I gave you a magic wand and you were able to change one thing about your firm, what would you change?
One thing about my firm, I would change the length of time, the ability for people to voice their concerns in order to have them remedied. I want loyal workers, and I have an open door policy, and I want people to feel comfortable and look forward to coming to work, which most of them do. And if a lot of young people, if they're having issues, they just rather than just leave, have a conversation, say what's bothering you. Say, I'm really willing to work with folks But again, and I feel like I've stressed this isn't that big of a problem. I mean, it happens like once every 2 years, but I want everyone to be here for a long time. So like, you know what I mean? So that's I guess I'm focusing on it too much, but I want this to be a family. We spend so much time together. We have a very good dynamic core group of people, and I want longevity.
That's kind of what I figured. You mentioned the HR issue earlier, so I kind of figured that would be your answer. Question number two. We go back in time without breaking the space-time continuum. We meet young Ronald, fresh out of law school, maybe. What advice would you give yourself other than the obvious, which is there's this thing going to come around called Bitcoin. Buy a lot of it and hold it to 100K. But what advice would you give yourself as you were just getting started?
If I could do it all over again, I would start and own a roofing company. It seems like a much better, easier way to make a lot of money.
That's fair. I do work with a lot of roofers in my line of work. It's hot and it's dangerous. So there are other headaches that go along with it for sure. But yeah, it is a very different gig. You do get a lot more air conditioning in your line of work, though.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off, right? Of course, if you own the company, you get to sit in the office and tell everyone
Right.
else.
That's where I was going to go with that, but yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
Tongue in cheek. Basically, I would be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
This is a very difficult, stressful area of law, and it takes its toll on you.
I can imagine that. Absolutely. So question number three, I have a magical pen here. This is from St. Benedict's Abbey in Atchison, Kansas, which is where I'm from. Their website, I'm going to give them a free shout out. It's kansasmonks.org.
Huh.
And this pen is really special, though, because I think one of the priests must have blessed it. And it has holy ink. And with this holy ink, you can actually make a change to a law. You can strike a law from the books, you can add a law, or you can edit a law, but it's almost out of ink. So you can really only make one change. If I gave you this magical, miraculous pen, Ronald, what law would you change?
I would change the requirements to be a judge. I think there should be a test, a competency or experience or some type of empirical testing requirement to be a judge or a magistrate. I think that the judges and magistrates have an incredible amount of power. And just like a bar exam to be a practicing attorney, I think there should be some type of bar exam to be a judge or a magistrate.
That's interesting. Judges tend to be voted in, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So what would you do if people vote them in? They would just still be disqualified, or
Well, no,
I'm
in
curious.
order to even run, they need to pass this test.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's as soon as I asked the question, I realized that was a simple workaround. But
Yeah, yeah.
well, Ronald, I always like to let my guests have the final word. Are there any parting words of wisdom or last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah. If at all possible, this might be counterintuitive, but I tell this to my friends all the time. If at all possible, make your relationship work, especially if there are children involved.
Oh, absolutely. That's great advice. Seek a therapist first, but if the therapy doesn't work out, talk to Ronald.
That's right.
All righty. Well, Ronald, thank you again for being a guest on my podcast. This has been the Attorney Post. As always, I've been chatting law with Ronald Petroff, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears his name. That is PetroffLawOffices.com, as well as, was it McNair Petroff. Gosh, I said Petroff repeatedly. I work with a guy named Petroff, so
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Petroff,
sorry.
PetroffLawOffices.com, downtown
I
Columbus. Yep.
had a misfiring synapse there. We'll have links to all of his information down below. As always, this podcast, though we do talk about legal issues, does not constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matter that you need help with. However, if you live particularly in Ohio, especially in the Columbus area where he is focused, I think Ronald and his firm, the Petroff Law Office, would be a great resource for you. And again, we'll always have all of his links down below if you guys want to check them out. If you're listening to the podcast on YouTube, we always appreciate a like, a subscribe, a share. Leave a comment down below if you learned something new today. If you're on any of the podcast repositories, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc., leave us a review, rate us, etc. But the most important thing you can do to help us grow this podcast is simply this. If you know someone that would benefit from the information in this particular episode, please share it with them. Because as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Until next time, I'm Justin. Thank you guys for listening, and take care.